native terrain. If you all want to create on here and keep or very she has these settings experience of working with youth, adults, individuals, parents, and families. We currently work with cycling groups to manage the area grant from police and sometimes providing workshops for different communities. GP is community and building connections and being associate parent and family or and the ability and to be healed and space of everything. She from leader our safe space don't give and that's something as well as the same and for party for proficiency in English along with that regarding this also ability encourages their ability to find something more. Then for the start.
Yeah, everyone hear me? If the people are talking at the mouth, the nights are okay. Um, so I love socializing and everything, but I feel that they're not place for it. And people that are very like to talk, or they start with and that probably because they spend people so we don't want to see from them. And so that's why I request that they continue to talk, to want to socialize, and to do great sponsors so that you can be better people. So if you know me, you know that I'm dates with intention and grounding. Today I'm going to really kind of to do this really kind of together. But what I want to do, we're starting this talk, especially this topic of mistakes. If we can take a moment to take better intention around ourselves, because we're all coming to their judgment intention. And so we build the intention for something, we get it. So I'm always looking to get something to things to kind of set results around ourselves and screen. Here to bring to this spring and set attention for what you want to achieve to you extensive. So tonight's meeting takes really an hour and there's joy as well. Right, all the way around to get started. But what we miss a lot of times is overlook is that there are some people that struggle. They are they sort of challenging, but they are going through that thing happen and they that coming to remove. And oftentimes like it's overlooked and it's other later they get mad because there's so much sadness, joy that we get from coming to Ramadan and things and down lungs. So part of what we're talking to be able to different challenges that people can take. Challenges can be very heavy and very intense. And so I also want to kind of give a little bit of the it's something we talk about that we personally and that may relate to one take it to heart. Maybe something that you can benefit from or does not want to benefit. The other thing is that if it triggers something in you that doesn't make you feel okay to do, please feel free to set it aside, take care of yourself, and do what you need to do. And there might be some heavy things. But I think that people struggle in it's often depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, eating is big that comes to essentially, and then we get your needs very often. You misunderstood because people think, well, you have to eat serves. Particularly, all of these systems are maybe don't say everything. That's we want to talk in terms of just
It's not just about abstaining from food and water, it is also about building compassion and working with our nafs in different capacities to be present with each other, right? So to take into account, people struggle with all kinds of things. ADHD can be triggered immensely in Ramadan because you have different routine, you have sleep pattern being disturbed. Depression can come out with that. With eating disorder, the challenge, like, you know how we break our fast and we look forward to breaking our fast, and that's our worship to Allah, that, you know, when we are breaking our fast, that's our way of worshiping Allah. The worship for people with eating disorder is the challenge of actually eating. That is their challenge. And it's not something that they can control that well. And it's a huge challenge that people face, but we don't recognize it often. And Nabia is going to go deeper into all of these. I wanted to kind of give an introduction so that we know what we're talking about and kind of go deeper into every aspect of it. And you know, when we were preparing this, we were laughing because this is every topic is an entire session on its own. You can't cover everything possibly in these. They also shortened our time because of the fundraiser, so you can't possibly cover everything today, right? But we wanted to give kind of an idea and touch on different things. So we have disorders, then we have other circumstantial things that happen. Family dynamics may change, right? You may have lost somebody who was there last Ramadan and is not here. I personally went through that. My grandmother was just passed away in January, right? So I keep thinking, she's not here this Ramadan. She loved Ramadan. So you may have someone personally that you lost. You may have had miscarriages. You may have had a new baby come. And so role dynamics are changing. All of these things can be really affecting someone that is struggling with Ramadan. So I want to pass it on to Nabia so that she can go over some of these things. So I'm really excited to hear her, and I always learn from her as well. So, Bismillah.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for being here. I know it's kind of late. May Allah benefit us all from whatever we hear tonight, inshallah, and help those around us with any knowledge that we will gain, inshallah. So I just want to briefly go over some few things that is kind of overlooked a little bit in detail. I'll see how detailed I can go into it. One of the thing is that, can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay. So this month is, I see it like a marathon given to us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we're all as a ummah on a global level being basically pushed on to our resiliences and our strengths. We think on a normal daily basis, including myself, when the doctor tells me you need to do a blood test while fasting, I just panic. Like, what? I can't have water when I wake up in the morning, and then I have to go do a blood test. Like, I just can't imagine that. But it's funny because then in Ramadan, we all actually do that for a month, right? So even though we are doing this every year, on a daily basis, we feel like, oh, we can't do these things. We are not strong enough. We can't do certain things. But in this month, because we're all doing it on a communal level, Allah pushes us, challenges us to give up things that we wouldn't think about giving it up. So a lot of these things that we do consider as challenge actually becomes like a strength to push ourselves and actually really recognize our strengths that we wouldn't know other times. So For example, some of the disorder is like Sister Sabrine was mentioning is like eating disorder. Um, or other addictions and the stuff that people are challenged with. So I will go a little bit into the eating disorder. So for one thing I want you all to remember is that, of course, you know those around you, and if you know anyone, a loved one who you know is like struggling with eating disorder, it's not a fun thing. And be very mindful not to call this month as a month of weight loss, trying to diet during this month and having such conversations referring to Ramadan, because that can be a kind of a very negative and toxic statement to say that in front of those who are struggling. Um, and we will go a little bit more into giving some tips on how to uh, be around those who are struggling with such thing. So for people with eating disorder, this can be a triggering and an anxiety-provoking time, and it can exacerbate their difficulties. As eating disorder seriously compromises bodily functions, particularly if the body is already in a state of starvation. Fasting during month could adversely and significantly affect your health, welfare, and overall recovery. Therefore, we advise you to discuss whether fasting is right for you or not. Discuss this with your eating disorder team, your family, and even possibly considering talking to an imam, in order to get right support and advice to help you and get the most of the special time. If you happen to be one of those who is struggling with this, or you have a loved one, just remember that this is a time that Allah is looking for abstinence from challenges and certain characteristics. It's not just about food. There's not just a food and water aspect. Therefore, try to really explore other aspects of Ramadan. It's important to keep checking with yourself. Some people can start to experience unhelpful thoughts about losing weight through fasting. So keep reminding yourself for the real meaning of Ramadan. What's the real meaning of Ramadan? If you notice any sign of relapse, then it might be helpful to speak to the loved ones and stop fasting temporarily. You know yourself better. So just have a very sincere check-in with yourself and whoever is your care provider. Include them in this process. Some of the tips, I'll go really quickly over it if you happen to be those who are able to fast with this while you're going through such challenge. Plan your meals in advance. Ensure that your energy providing foods are in your meal. For example, proteins, fruits, vegetables, yogurt, and other things such as dates. Eat your meal at a sensible pace, and remember to drink plenty of water between iftar and suhoor. Gradually, rather than drinking a large amount of water at once. If you struggle with binge eating, long periods of low food intake can trigger a binge episode. To reduce the risk of losing control, make sure you do not skip suhoor or iftar and practice mindful eating during iftar. After eating, try to avoid unhelpful thoughts by distracting yourself, talking to others, keeping yourself busy with Quran or other reflections of listening to the Quranic reflections online, or spending time with your family and just being part of the community. Above all, be compassionate to yourself. It's okay for things to not go according to your plan. Do not give up. Learn from the experience and think about what could be done differently the next day. Eating disorders can have a significant impact on the life of the young person struggling with eating disorder. Therefore, for the family, it's important to understand how best to help the young person during the month of Ramadan. We will have some more resources later on. Like Sbreen was saying, this is a very deep topic. We're just scratching the surface. So we will provide you some resources that you can look into how to be best support for your family members. Ramadan and fasting has a lot of positive aspects. And as I mentioned earlier, it's like a marathon that we all can do it as a ummah together. One of the things that actually hunger brings in is it helps with our mental health, such as anxiety. Although anxiety is a stem from fear, but if the energy is lowered, if you have less energy in your body, the body will not have anxiety episodes. It's funny because I had this conversation with an expert, and he was telling me that he actually tells his clients who have a lot of anxiety to fast on the day that they're going to see him. So that way, they actually are very stable on the level of their anxiety. And this is just a normal time. So when your body doesn't have so much sugar running it through it, that freezing and then coming back and reacting, your body with it freezes and then it goes back to normal and then comes back to this panic attack. It will, when it doesn't have that sugar and that energy, it will not be able to do that. So your body actually slows down and your anxiety gets under more control. That's amazing, subhanAllah. Also, it goes for addictions. So for addictions, this is a month that that Ramadan is the time when most people are challenged with addictions. Actually making improvements. They make a lot of improvements. They actually realize they are able to give up things, such as smoking, vaping, all kinds of other things that they're really either addicted to or they use it very frequently, the substances.
So while Nabia is taking a drink, I know this can get very like medical and kind of like a little bit. I mean, okay, I'll kind of give a personal reference, but I get bored by this stuff sometimes because when I was studying it, I was like, okay, what do you need to do? What do you need to do? But these are very good tips that Nabia is sharing, because if you or your loved one are going through this, educating yourself, you know how Allah teaches us to read, Iqra, that's the first thing that we were taught, to actually educate yourself and go through the struggle of really learning this knowledge is very important. So what Nabia is sharing is actually, it can be very monotonous and like kind of, okay, heavy in terms of that, but I would recommend to take notes because it's a lot of information if you are not already taking notes while she's sharing. And also, I just got a message that they want us to finish in another 10 to 15 minutes. So you have about 5 minutes.
Very helpful. I'll go very quickly through addiction. So anyways, this month, like I said, those who are struggling with addictions, they can very much be able to overcome their challenges. One thing I really wanted to share is, again, with fasting, the energy of your body, basically your body shakes up and the urges calm down. Your body is put into a state of shock and it just literally like is pushed, where that hunger really actually like helps you heal. I guess, how am I gonna go? Here? I don't know. I don't know how to do. Okay, I think I'll just. One thing I really want to emphasize before we wrap up is if you have a loved one who is struggling with addictions, be very gentle with them. This is a time that you don't want to shame them. You don't want to tell them that how can you not fast during this day? Rather, encourage them. If they're not able to fast through the whole day, they need to fast half a day until they get to where they need to be. And always think about how would you want to be treated if you were them. A lot of compassion, a lot of empathy is important to encourage them. Because if you shame those who are struggling with addiction, what will they do is they will go back to their coping mechanism, and it just actually goes back. You're enabling them to go back to their old patterns. So that's something I really wanted to emphasize. Do a lot of compassion and encouragement. And I wanted to highlight this hadith. If you criticize someone for a sin they commit, you will not die until you are put in that sin. So think about it when when you think you're around those who are struggling. We all have some trapdoors. It comes in different ways to us. For them, it came in a form of substance. For us, it could come in another form. So just know that it's Allah's mercy that you're protected. I really quickly wanted to touch upon the challenges converts face. Is that this is a very challenging month for them because they're very lonely. They don't have anyone to do sahur or iftar with. So I encourage you to really be part of the community, come to the massages and eat while other people are here, and just be part of the community. If you are a care provider, being a care provider is not easy on a daily basis, let alone that having that in Ramadan. You might feel very discouraged, very frustrated that you don't have enough time to do any kind of ibadah. Just know your ibadah is done in action. You are doing ibadah. Give yourself credit and don't beat yourself up just because you cannot come for Tarawih or do other things that other people are doing. Of course, those around you, please provide support for those who are care providers, whether they're mothers or providing care for elderly or some disabled.
Okay, so all of that information can be a lot, as I said, and I want you to remember a couple of things. One, that's the technical part of it, right? Like what happens with eating disorder, what we can do, how it affects our body, how it affects our systems. What I want you to also understand is that the spiritual aspect of it. Not everyone is feeling a spiritual high in Ramadan because they're going through these struggles. And one of the things that we want to do is to help in being present with them, right? Having that empathy that Nabia is talking about. One of the verses when I was preparing this, whenever I'm preparing for something like this, I always like to sit with it and kind of reflect on why this topic now? What is it that people need from it? What is it that my intention is to deliver? And when I was reflecting on it, and I think a few days ago in Tarabi, we read Surah Tawbah, and that verse in the Quran that comes on, I can't remember the exact verse, but I think it was when the Prophet ﷺ told some companions that they cannot go into battle because he didn't have a mount for them, right? He didn't have the resources, so they were turned back. They couldn't go for battle. And they had tears in their eyes. In the Quran, Allah describes that they had tears in their eyes because they couldn't go. So for me, I think of people that want to fast but cannot fast because of different reasons, right? Because of depression, anxiety, ADHD, eating disorders, even self-harm and suicidal thoughts. Sometimes you're taking medication for that. You can't, fast for that. There are different things that come up that prevent people from fasting. And what we look at as in the mental health world and in Khalid Center, we actually have people that do religious consultations that have studied the deen, like Sheikh Suhail Mullah, Maulana Bilal Ansari. They've studied the deen and we do religious consults with them, and they've studied mental health. So we go to them with some of like the cases. Like last year, I had a client who had an eating disorder, and I went to them and asked, like, is it okay for her to fast or not? And what they look at is the harm versus the benefit. And so we have to look at that too. When we are coming to people and saying, well, you're not fasting, you can do it, you can just push yourself, and it's not. We have to look at how much harm we're causing versus the benefit. But when I think of this, when I shared the news with her that she cannot fast, she actually had tears in her eyes that she could not fast. And so it gave me a new perspective that, fasting teaches us to be grateful that for food, right? That we have food and water. We think of people in Gaza right now that are fasting without even food and water. And fasting gives us a perspective that we have food and water, we are able to eat, we're able to drink. But it gave me a new perspective that alhamdulillah, I can even fast because I may be in a position like the hadith that Nabia just mentioned. I may be in a position where I may not be able to fast, and that's hard. It's to not be able to fast in Ramadan. I can't even imagine that. That would make me tear up. And so to have this compassion with each other in terms of how we are and where we are in that struggle. The other thing is to have, the talk is called Uplifting the Struggling Hearts, right? So I came up with this acronym that you can do with others in terms of being present for them. And I came up with this while driving to and forth, because driving is a very good time to reflect. So if we want to be uplifters, we want to be people that uplift others. So what we have to do is understand. We have to understand where they're going, understand where they're coming from. We have to protect and have patience. Protect them from others that may harm them and protect them from harm from themselves, right? And also have patience with them. And we have to love them because sometimes they don't feel the love for themselves and they may feel like they're losing faith. They may feel like they're bad Muslims, which you're not. If you are struggling with this, you are not a bad Muslim if you cannot fast. We have to show interest and inspire them because that's part of what we do as an ummah is we inspire and we remind each other, right? That's what is in the Quran. Remind the believers for reminders of benefit. And we have to forgive them and be a friend to them because sometimes in that in struggling through mental health, you can have things that come up and people can respond in ways that are very harsh. Then we have to take care of them. And then we have to stay together as an ummah to kind of be present with them. So we have, on the one hand, we have to be uplifters. On the other hand, we have to be resistors. So we have to resist, right? So when we resist, what do? We remember Allah. We have empathy and we empower. And I feel like I'm running out of time. That's why I'm kind of, yeah, okay. Yeah. I can sense it in this side of the room. So we have to remember Allah. We have to have empathy and empowerment. We have to spread the salam. When we're spreading salam, when we say assalamu alaikum to each other, what does that actually mean? That means there's no harm. There's no harm from me to you. That's the literal meaning of when we're greeting our brother and sister in Islam, right? That we are not going to harm you in any way. And so we have to really internalize that. Then what I said before, ikra, we have to learn to seek knowledge about this and to be present with each other and to uplift each other, not bring each other down. Like Nabia said at the beginning, not shame each other, right? Then we have to have sabr and tawakkul. We have to learn to trust Allah and to have sabr with it. So I'm going to probably end at this moment because I'm being given signals. I apologize, this talk was short and quick, but we were cut one time because of the fundraiser, and I think there's another event coming up now. This is a very huge topic, and we just had to cover it briefly, so we cannot possibly do justice to it in this amount of time. But if you want any other information, there's our table at the back. Please feel free to contact us. Inshallah, maybe we can arrange for deeper topics and deeper one structure thing in the future. But this was just to kind of raise awareness that people will be struggling in Ramadan and to have that compassion and that nature of uplifting each other in this month, inshallah.
I just wanted you guys to know that if there's anyone that who will need the resources, we have some resources for those, such as people who are dealing with addictions or eating disorder. We have it in the slides. If you need that, please make a note of it and share it with those who need it. Thank you. If there's any questions.
Do we have time for questions, or they're scratching that too? No time? Okay, one or two questions. Sorry, this is so rushed. It's such a heavy topic and it's so rushed that we had to rush and we're... Go ahead.
but like, how do you also like respect what the other person's going through and like give them space?
Absolutely. So our understanding of patience needs to change. It is good to remind the other person to have patience. That is an important part of our theme, that we should have patience. But patience is not sitting back and not taking action, right? Patience is also struggling through what we're given, the test that we're given. One thing that I say a lot in my talks, or I don't know if I've said it here, but maybe elsewhere, is we always tell people, well, you know, Allah loves you, that's why He's testing you, right? Like, if you're being tested, Allah loves you. That's what we hear a lot as well. And along with that, have patience. But one of my friends actually taught this. Her husband is going through, he has a brain tumor, and they actually just this week gave him 3 to 6 months to live. And she's tells me, like, why do people keep saying Allah loves you, and then they just like they're gone, they don't show up? So that made me reflect, like, when we say Allah loves you because He tests you, and we leave that person alone, that's not showing love to the other person. We stay with them. We stay with them in their pain. We stay with them in what they're struggling through. Because if Allah loves this person, I want to be right next to this person. If Allah is testing this person, then I have to be patient and also being next to this person and really struggling through with them. And that may mean not knowing what's coming, what's going on, but being present with them in those emotions. Have you seen the movie Inside Out? So you know how sadness sits with, I forgot his name, with the imaginary friend, and just listens, right? That's also being part of patient. So it's not just giving word service and giving advice, be patient. It's also being with them in the trenches and loving them, because Allah loves them to test them. And so loving them and being present with someone that Allah loves, and Allah will reward you and help you through that.
Sbreen answered it, but just like acknowledging, like whatever they're struggling with. Yes, this is difficult for you. I hear you. I'm here with you. That's it. You don't have to fix anything for them. Especially like what we was talking about earlier, like for example, those who are going through losses and griefs, you clearly cannot bring the person back to life, right? It's hard. And all you do is just be there with them. If they want to talk about their loved one they have lost, just listen and grow on that. Talk about those good memories. But if they don't want to talk about it, you're just like, yeah, I hear you. It's hard. That's it.
Okay, we're getting very, very like stern signals to just end. So we're going to end. But Jazakallah khair for coming. May Allah ease everyone's affairs. And please keep yourself and the ummah in your du'as this Ramadan, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Sbreen, Sister Nabia. We apologize for this time problem because we got sandwiched into between two different events at a short notice. So inshallah, we will have more of these events going forward, and we want to make sure we get enough time to the speakers as well as to the audience to answer their questions. Jazakallah khair, everybody, for your time and support. Inshallah, for next time.